name is Kim Tucker, if you don't know. My husband and I started this group about 20 and a half years ago, in 2004, if my math is right, might not be. And we've been doing this ever since. I was on our Facebook group doing our emergency notifications, and somebody goes, "There's meetings?" I'm like, "Where have you been? Do you not read the posts?" I do a lot. So tonight we're going to talk about subject to the seller's mortgage. So buying a house subject to the seller's mortgage. I had somebody ask me, what does subject to mean? Because I just said Jeff was talking about subject to. I was more about getting you here than what Jeff was going to talk about. So we had to explain that. So if you don't know what subject to is, the seller is selling you their house, but you're not paying off their mortgage. You're going to start paying their mortgage. I do believe we've been doing subject to since there's been loans, and you could take them over. They used to let you assume a loan. I think you can only do that with VA now. But you can still buy subject to. But there's a lot of hoops you don't necessarily know about. Or you might go, what about this or what about that? And the speaker goes, oh, don't worry about that. That never happens. So Jeff's going to talk about what never happens because it is happening a little bit more and more. But we have a few announcements. If you're trying to get on the Wi-Fi, we are in Strang Guest. There is no password. We asked everybody to put our phones on mute. Let me do that because somebody, I am sure, will call me in the middle of this. And have you found the bathrooms yet? The bathrooms are over here on the left. There is no ladies' room. There is no men's room. There is the bathroom. And you just pick whichever one you want. I couldn't get the door unlocked, but I'm having door issues. So that's our housekeeping issues. So about why we're here tonight. Anybody, what do you think of the new space? Oh, we got some things. I like the new space. All right, we've got chairs over on this side. Come all the way over here, people, and make friends. We've got a chair here. Wait, Barb's got a chair. We got every other chair, so we can fill them in. It's kind of like Southwest. Every seat is full, so make a friend and sit down. We don't need to bring out too many more chairs because you don't have to stand up at the back. You can come fill in over on the other side. We're also going to talk about Southwest a lot because Jeff always flies Southwest. We've decided that Southwest should be paying Jeff for commercial advertising as well as Chick-fil-A. So I'm sure that'll come up tonight too. But this is our temporary home. Everybody's asking, why are we here? Well, I had a lot of stuff going on in June, and I reached out about our contract at the hotel, and I didn't realize that nobody had gotten back with me until Sunday. And my person was on emergency medical leave, so nobody bothered to follow up with me. I didn't follow up with them, and they sold the space to somebody else. So that's why we are here tonight. We're going to take a poll later on, see if we all like it here tonight. We're also going to see if our hosts like us here tonight and see if we can come back here again because we like this location. Come on, people. There's chairs over on this side. You just got to walk down. You can walk across the front, too. It's just me. It's not. Come on over. We got plenty of chairs on the other side. So this is our temporary home for tonight. We may be here next month. We may be somewhere else. I have no idea. We're going to figure that out later this week. I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsors tonight because they help pay for this room, and you need to check them out. PMI Destination Properties, they do property management for irregular rentals. They do regular realtor stuff to help you buy and sell houses, and they manage short-term rentals. So if you are looking for help with management, you can talk to PMI. Mark Yonda, I don't even know if he's in here. He's probably still out there talking to people. Mark, did I get in? Not yet. So Mark is our cabinet guy. He also does flooring, but pretty much cabinets are his thing. He is here every month, and he has never missed a meeting in, I don't know, since he joined, except for one, because he was at a convention. Sorry. All right, come on in. We got chairs over here, guys. You can come fill in over here. And we've got a contingent of empties here in the middle. You just have to come in and sit in the middle. Make Bill move over. You'll find room. Our next sponsor is Susan Aubin with Merchants Mortgage. She has been here a member of MAREI for a very long time. She used to fly in every month from Denver or Morrison, and she decided she liked Kansas City so much she moved here. We're not sure if she's right in the head. Colorado is much better, but she is one of our hard money lenders, although she has a different kind of hard money. She has mushy money. So you'll have to call Susan up or message her on Facebook or see her tonight before she leaves and find out what mushy money means. But she does short-term lending, and I think they have a little bit of mid-term lending if you ask them. We have another vendor. They can help you with cleaning your house, doing your construction cleans. They even do trash outs. So talk to the cleaning maids. I had tons of great reviews for them when I checked them out. We have a new company here in town doing dumpsters. So if you've heard of Crossroads and Destination and the Asbels with Home Busters, this is their newest company, Mid-America Dumpster Rental Services. It's part of their little family. We got Crossroads Investment Lending. They do short-term lending, and if you're looking for deals, they do wholesales as well. And they have a meeting of their own. I believe it is next Tuesday in the morning. It's on the MAREI calendar, but they offer breakfast in their office, and they have a small training room. I think it seats about 30. You have to RSVP. It's free, but they talk different topics about real estate. If you haven't met Augie, those of you that are struggling with health insurance, self-employed people going, yeah, I don't want to pay that Obamacare pricing. Talk to Augie. He might have some different products that can help you. We have a new person, Lydia McAvoy. Did I get that right? I hope so. Because I keep wanting to call you Linda. I don't know why. But she is a former collector for Cass County, Clay County. She knows everything there is to know about tax sales in the general vicinity, and she has a class this Saturday. It is on the MAREI calendar. But she also has a nationwide help you figure out title, who owns a house, liens, and things through Jurisdeed. It is nationwide, so if you need help on a note or trying to track somebody down on a skip trace, she would be your person to talk to. Another hard money lender, North Oak Investments, and they are probably one of the oldest hard money lenders here in town. The first deal I ever did, sold a deal to an investor, and North Oak was the funder. They didn't have a fax machine back then or internet. It was handwritten. They didn't have a typewriter. But that was Bernie. He was old school. Probably still is. That's why he's got new guys helping him. If you need more property management, Vocal Property Management manages rental properties across the city. They've been in business for quite a while. A lot of great reviews as well. I'm not sure if they do short-term rental. I didn't ask. I'll have to find that out. You can find them all in the business directory as well as all of our other business vendors. Or if you grabbed a newsletter or downloaded a digital one, you will find the business directory and all their contact and websites in there. All right, who was here in July for our Harvesters event? You need to give yourselves a pat on the back. You need to give all of our vendors a pat on the back. I got to read this. This room, our vendors, we raised $8,960 for Harvesters, which is 2 meals for every dollar. With our match from Cable Dahmer, we raised 35,840 meals. Last time I checked, we were the #1 food fundraiser for virtual fundraising for Harvesters for last year and for this year. So we're #1 and #2 on their rankings of all time since they've been ranking. So give yourselves a round of applause. You're feeding Kansas City. And they're very grateful in the summertime because usually people only donate food at the grocery store at Thanksgiving and Christmas, maybe Easter, but in the summertime, nobody takes those little tear tabs and swipes them at the grocery store, so they appreciate everything we do in the summertime. Please be sure to grab a newsletter if you haven't already, or you can download one online. Our newsletter is in PDF, so you can read it digitally right there on the computer, or you can download it to a PDF. You can have some of the slides that I'm going to be talking about. There's actual QR codes in there so you can find more information. So on our calendar, I don't know why I have MAREIMember.com. I have no idea. You can go to either one of our websites, MAREI.org, MAREIMember.com. We have two. Click on the calendar. We've got some events coming up. We have Winvestors every Wednesday morning. So Winvestors live or MemoRex tomorrow? Live at FlexPod? FlexPod Westport. Our tax sale class, where is that?
It's in the Cass County Annex, but we will also do a rebroadcast. But scan the QR code tonight to listen.
Okay.
It's in Cass County,
Harrisonville. We had a meeting this morning. What is it called? Home Network? Home Resources Network. It's been a long 3 days. Home Resources Network, they meet at the ACA Club in Overland Park. I know Ron is here. I don't know if Doug's here or Bob's here. Doug's there. Okay, Bob's here. Yeah, they're all here. They run that. And if you can't make their meetings, definitely find their Facebook group. They've had some really interesting topics the last couple weeks. Brian and Michelle gave a class on tax sale a couple weeks ago. Who was this week? Ron spoke. Bruce Belanger spoke last week, and then Kyle spoke a couple weeks ago on the market update. So if you want to know what's going on, he's taken what KCRER gives us, and he is our president of Heartland MLS. He is our tech wizard, and he took their data, turned it on in, and gives you way more information than you're ever going to get off the KCRER website. So I would either catch it on the Winvestors replay or on the Home Resources Network replay. They're both on Facebook. What else do we got going on? We've got Jeff's class. So everybody's here, and they're like, okay, well, we can see Jeff Tuesday. Why would we want to go to the class? Or I can go to the class. Why would we come Tuesday? Well, they're kind of made to go together. It's not like what he's going to say tonight is going to be verbatim for the first 90 minutes of the next class. This is the base. You need to be at this class, this meeting, so you have the base. So he doesn't have to bring you up to speed when he starts at the workshop on the 19th. So if you're going to be doing sub 2 regularly, definitely say you want to be at his workshop on the 19th, or at least register to get the replay. It is virtual. So if you're going to attend from Hawaii, you can do that. Just remember the time zone change. I get that wrong. But I'm always an hour late, dollar short. Next month, we're talking lease options and buying houses REO. I think this will be an interesting concept. We'll have to ask Jeff if this is legal. I don't know. But you try to buy at sub 2 and you just can't get it worked, but they're in foreclosure anyway. Perhaps you could buy it at the courthouse steps, or once the bank owns it, you can go buy it any day. But I think knowing all those together, you might be able to buy a house somewhere in the stage, just work it all the way through. We'll have to find out if that's legal. He'll probably tell me, don't do that, it's wrong. But come and learn about REOs and then how to sell them on lease option, because you can make money now, make money over time, and make money when you sell it. It's a three-step process. He has a class and a meeting and a workshop. And I'm going to ask everybody to join tonight. I'm not going to give you a dog and pony show to go ahead and join. But how many people here are members? How many people have been members for more than a year? Okay, there's your dog and pony show. I think you should be a member if you're going to be in real estate. You can network with everybody. All these people in the room have, what did I say? Hundreds and thousands of doors and hundreds of thousands of deals and probably hundreds of thousands of years of experience. So if you need help doing something, somebody in this room has the answer. Probably not me, but I can connect you with the right person. Okay, I'm going to give you the disclaimer now. You're going to get another disclaimer. I used to read Jeff Watson's disclaimer verbatim because I stole it from him when he spoke here last. But then I made up my own. So tonight's meeting is to spark thought, ideas. We don't endorse a strategy, a person, a model, or a product. Please consult experts before buying or investing or hiring or doing business. Expert realtors, expert attorneys. And while Jeff is here as an educator and Jeff is an attorney, he is not here as your attorney. So make sure you know that. All right, so we want you to take some action. This is the boring part. We're going to talk government issues. So Jackson County has been working on getting everybody, what are we up to? 52,000 people that have tried to get their tax assessments reduced. I have a page on the blog. Whenever there's new breaking news on that, I add it there. So if you want the latest, or you see the latest and I don't have it, let me know so I can update the page. But we're trying to keep everything on there. There was a town hall event with a lot of different officials that are trying to do stuff. The replay is on that page. Thanks to Stacy Johnson Cosby. Don't see Stacy tonight. Short-term rentals. I don't know if you read this, I've shared it out in the newsletter. Another city, I believe it was Austin, Texas, has a similar ordinance to us that if you don't live in the property, it's like virtually impossible to get a new short-term rental license. That law was found unconstitutional last week. So maybe your lawsuit in court has some merit there. I strongly recommend joining the Kansas City Short-Term Rental Alliance. You can find them on Facebook. I didn't go to their networking last week. Are they starting to charge dues yet? They just formed because of this. I know Jamie was there. So no dues yet, but they will probably have some dues or ask you for some money along the way. So for all those things I just shared, you can find information on the blog. All right, I'm introducing two people now, or one person in two hats. So if we look at over here on the left, this is Jeff Watson, our lobbyist. He is in Washington, D.C. regularly lobbying on your behalf on different issues related to real estate investing. He's advising at National REIA and several other lobbyist firms. And then on the other side, oh, my text went away. It's Jeff Watson, the educator, the attorney, the advisor. He advises a lot of the top investors in the country. A couple of months ago, he was teaching a class, and I'm like, I really want you to come do that class here. He had a class of some of the who's who of real estate investors, and everybody in that room was a guru, and Jeff was up there teaching them in Florida. But you're not going to get that full class because I think it was a day and a half. It was a long class. But he's going to share you the highlights that you need to know. But I'm going to ask him first to come up and give us some updates on some legislative stuff you need to know in Washington, D.C., and then he'll take over and teach us about subject 2. So let's welcome Jeff Watson from Ohio, Florida, by way of Chicago.
Kim, thank you so very much. Before anything, Kim and team deserve a huge round of applause for this major shift in what, 24 hours? From one venue to another? So yeah, give it up for Kim. All right.
She tried to get us a room somewhere else. We just couldn't quite. We actually could get that room, but we didn't think we'd fit.
All right. So, okay, cool. Now, before I launch into a bunch of stuff, I got to find out where I can stand, where I can't. Okay, we're good. All right. Thank you. How many of you are real estate investors right now? Okay, great. How many of you are curious about becoming a real estate investor? Go ahead, you can raise your hand up higher than that, okay? This is an open, warm, safe environment, okay? So now, let's go back. So we got a few curious, that's great. We got some people who are real estate investors, but now I need to know, who are the serious real estate investors? Yeah, I know. I'm staying in one spot and letting the technical wizards do their thing, and then we'll dial it all in because every time, this is a brand new venue, we've never done this before, so we're just figuring it all out, okay? So, but who's a serious real estate investor? You're going to be like a landlord until the day you die. They're going to carry your corpse out of one of your fix and flips, something like that, okay? All right. So if you're serious, I want to talk to you right now. There are forces in play in Washington, D.C. that despise you. They despise what you've done and accomplished in your life. You have too much. You're too privileged. You're racist. You're discriminatory. You're mean. You're unfair. You're hostile. They believe that. And so there are things that are happening. And one of the things that's happening right now is FHFA. That was that government agency created out of thin air back in 2008 in order to supervise Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Okay? They have just sought commentary regarding source of funds discrimination used, apparently done by landlords, that say, oh, if a landlord asks the tenant how they can afford to pay the rent, that's discriminatory. Yeah. If the landlord says, oh, well, are you employed? Or you have an assistance program, well, that's a discriminatory question. You can't ask that question. That's where they want to go. So I'm pushing back against that. And the other thing that I'm pushing it back against right now is, in my dear state of Ohio, we have 2 senators, one of whom I really respect, he and I get along great, and one of whom I can't wait to show the door next year, the door on the way out. The guy on the way out just introduced a bill, along with some of his really wacky progressive friends, the same people who want to destroy IRAs, where if you have more than 50 houses, you lose your tax deductions. No depreciation and no interest deductions. Now you say, well, Jeff, it's 50 houses. Only big rich companies can do that. No. I've seen mom and pops build 50 houses. And oh, by the way, I got a question for you. Once the law's in place, how long does it take them to amend the 50 to 5? Yeah. Now, so how many of you give a hoot about the 50 house limit? Okay, great. For those of you that put your hands up in the air, keep them up in the air. If you know how to click, copy, paste, personalize, and send. Because I created a 9-minute video that Kim has used. She'll share it with you. A 9-minute video to watch me click, copy, paste, personalize, and send. And guess what? You can do it from the comfort of your own home. You can still do it while you're wearing your pajamas. You can do it when you got your favorite cup of coffee sitting right there next to you. All you got to do is click a couple of times, copy, paste, personalize. I put in your name and part of your story. What city do you live in? How many houses do you have? What are you doing? And then send it. Can you do that? If we make that link available to you, can you do that? Awesome, because every U.S. senator needs to be told, no, do not support this bill. And by the way, it's Senate Bill 2224. All right? Senate Bill 2224. All right. So those are the 2 political action items that I've been working on recently. I do plan on spending a lot more time in D.C. in the next 16 months between now and the general election, working on one thing. Actually, 2 things. 2 things. Number 1, I want to continue to have the Republicans that control the House of Representatives deny any appropriations for rent control or the Renters' Bill of Rights. The second thing is I want to continue pushing for and advocating for the passage of H.R. 3464, which I co-wrote with some other members of Congress, and it's going to amend part of Dodd-Frank on seller financing. We've been working on that for a long time. So those are the 2 big issues that I'm looking at in D.C. Is there anything I missed, Kim?
Seller finance.
Covered it?
Oh, the IRA thing, I think we solved. That was
we killed that one October 21. I killed that thing. John Heyer and I led the charge. You guys all participated. For everybody that called, faxed, emailed, and sent letters, thank you. Because I remember to this day, my friend Vicente Gonzalez, Democrat congressman out of Texas, South Texas, on the border, looked at me on October 21st, about 5:15 in the evening. We had about a 30-minute meeting. We step outside. He's ready to go over to the Democrat National Club, and he looks at me and he says, if I can convince my friend Josh to pull the bill, will the phone call stop? And I said, yes, we will get them to stop.
There is one more bill that dropped last week. The co-sponsor is our own waiver. It is to offer incentives for landlords to use Section 8, not make it, it's just incentives, so that they incentivize you using Section 8, not force it down your throat. So I kind of like that one, maybe.
But you see, this is the problem that I have with half the politics in Washington, D.C. They're focused on affordable housing. I want affordable home ownership. And you say, well, Jeff, what's the difference? The difference is affordable housing means I'm renting. Affordable home ownership means I'm buying a house and I own it. Because the National Association of Realtors has published a study now twice. The numbers changed just a little bit. But long-term homeowners have a 47 times greater net worth than long-term renters. Now, I want communities to be filled with people who are living there and building wealth on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Because that builds a better community. That builds safer streets. That builds better schools. That builds a better neighborhood. Okay, so I'm a huge fan of affordable home ownership. Affordable housing, it's a necessary thing, but we gotta stop incentivizing it to the expense of affordable home ownership. So, just out of curiosity, I'm going to segue now. I'm kind of curious about some stuff. Let me see if we're going to do this the clicker way or we're going to do this the fingertip way. We're going to do this the fingertip way. All right. There we go. Okay. How many of you have ever heard me speak before? David, you can put your hand. I'm going to pick on David a little bit. Okay. So, if you've heard me speak before, you probably just need a gentle reminder of some of my policies, okay? Number one, I am not woke. Number two, I am not progressive, but I am bipartisan, okay? My preferred pronouns are y'all and you'n, okay? My mandatory adjectives are smart and good looking, okay? There's a little bit of humor in there, a little bit of seriousness in there. All right, so we got that. No, seriously, I will do my best to educate today. And so I have to, Kim, did you get this working?
I believe so.
You're amazing. Thank you.
I know something.
Thank you. Yay. All right, so let's get to this. Okay, there's the August issue. Here I am. Took that picture when I was in Washington, D.C., just grinding it away. All right, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the truth about subject 2. We're going to get into that. But before I get into that, I got to cover this part here. Who am I? Doesn't really matter except this. I'm only licensed to practice law in Ohio, and I am here to deliver education, and only education. In fact, I now call that my Ricky D disclaimer, because I want to make sure everybody understands I'm delivering education. I'm not here to give you legal advice. So don't think you're going to get free legal advice from me because it ain't happening. All right? All right, a little bit about me. I've changed the law in the state of Ohio 5 times, changed national housing policy 3 times, co-authored an amendment to the Dodd-Frank SAFE Act and Truth in Lending Act. It's called H.R. 3464, bipartisan bill currently pending before the House Financial Services Committee. Andy Barr will have that in markup in September or October, and it will then move to the House floor. In 2008, I was a nobody. I'd been doing short sales for about 5 years. Came up with a better, smarter way of doing back-to-back short sale transactions and wrote all the documentation to do it, and then everybody took off from there. So, anyhow, that was all cool. I'm a board member of Quest Trust Company, so I'm a huge fan of self-directed IRAs. Who else has a self-directed IRA? Who else actively uses them? Good. Who wants to do a better job using their self-directed IRAs? There is a massive amount of free information available at Quest Trust's YouTube channel and on their website, questtrust.com. Massive amount of information. And the last thing is I've got some real estate investing clients, 2 at least, maybe 3, that have formed companies that I've helped them do this, where they've made the Inc. 500 list of privately held fast-growing companies. So I know what kind of the hockey stick growth looks like, okay? I co-own one of those companies. We had an amazing run in 10, 11, and 12. And now we're just the 800-pound gorilla in our space. All right, so that's all that. Okay, enough of that. So I got to once again say this because I got to be able to prove that I had it in writing, because if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. We good with that? If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. This presentation is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to the subject matter covered. This is education, not legal advice. It is provided with the understanding that the presenter is not engaged in running legal, accounting, or other professional advice, including psychiatric. If legal or other professional assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person must be acquired. All right. How many of you want to buy more houses? Okay, we're going to try something interesting here. If you have bought more than one investment property this year, please stand up. More than one. Great. If you've only bought one, please stand up and join them. Fantastic. How many of you have sold an investment property this year? You guys, everybody can sit down now. Everybody can, thank you so much. How many of you sold an investment property? I have two. Just dropped off the closing papers this morning at the title company on the way out. All right? So I sold the house I sold this weekend. I bought a year and a half ago, and I bought it subject to the existing mortgage. I ran it as a rental for a year and a half, and then the tenant approached me and said, man, we'd really like to buy this house. And I thought to myself, let me see, Jeff. You bought this house a year and a half ago, so it's a long-term capital gain. Cool. You've not been in the house in over a year and a half. So you've got no idea what it looks like. You don't know about the roof. You don't know about the furnace. You don't know about this. This might be the time to sell this house. Particularly since you can sell it for a good profit. And you can take the money from the sale of this and roll it into 3 more houses that you're buying down in Florida. So I'm like, yep, we're doing this. Okay, so we sold it, we're rolling in. So that's what we're doing. I will sell stuff when I can roll it into something a bigger, better deal. Okay? So anyhow, all right. Now, how many of you heard me say that I bought the house subject to a year and a half ago? Okay, how about, let me ask you this. A year and a half ago, how many of you have ever heard of subject to? How about 20 years ago, how many of you were buying houses subject to? Yeah, Brian and Michelle, you should have your hands up. What about you, Randolph? Were you buying stuff subject to 20 years ago?
Yeah, right. I'm not 20 years old.
Yeah,
I'm not going to fall for that.
yeah, right. Okay. Well, I'll let you get away with that one. So I was doing sub-2 deals 20 years ago, and I pulled up one of those old files and I looked through it and I went, egads. My paperwork was that crappy back then. And we're like, okay, well, we'll just keep elevating my game. Just keep elevating my game. So we've created some really good subject to paperwork. Anyhow, so let's get into this because I want to talk about the 3 worst sources of legal advice for real estate investors. How many of you realize that when you buy and sell real estate, when you're a landlord, when you do things with real estate, you always got to pay attention to what the laws are? How many of you agree with that? You need to be educated, right? So let's talk about the 3 worst sources. Okay, source number 1. I saw on TikTok.
Oh, God.
I got my law degree from TikTok. That's even a faster course than getting your law degree from Google, by the way. Okay? So I got a sad story about that in just a minute. Here's the next one. They say. Well, who's they? I ask that question all the time. They don't answer. Who's they? Well, they need to do something like that. Well, who's they? Yeah, they're very powerful, yeah. And I don't know who they are. They don't have to materialize or what? Okay. And then the last one is, I read on the internet. Well, everything on the internet is 100% true according to Abraham Lincoln. Okay? All right. So let's face it. I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I drove into Kansas this afternoon. That was pretty cool. Coming out of the airport, coming over here. So we are in Kansas, but I think all of us would agree that the real estate market today is very different than it was a year ago. Anybody going to argue with me on that? How much have interest rates gone up in the last year? Almost 6%. Yeah, the Fed has raised rates that much. How many of you are still dealing with sellers that think their house is worth what their neighbor's house sold for a year ago? Now, Mr. Smith, I understand that your neighbor sold his house last year for $480,000 and that you have newer windows in your house. I understand that. And so you think your house should sell for $483,000. Okay. Mr. Smith, are you aware of what the Joneses paid for a mortgage, what the interest rate was when they bought your neighbor's house for $480,000? Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, are you now aware that the mortgage rates are significantly, almost 3 times higher than that? Because they got a mortgage at 2.35%. And today, I'd be lucky to get something under 7. Do I need to show you in a financial calculator what that means? Yes, well, that's the problem. Because they won't read it even then. Okay, so anyhow. But I'm going to show you a way of how you can get closer, almost all the way to that price that they want, if they're willing to work with you on some other things. So what do we say we get into this, all right? But I got to warn you. I've got both good news and I got bad news. Is that okay? How many of you don't want to hear the bad news? How many of you only want to hear the good news? How many want to hear it all? Okay, great. So today's housing and regulatory landscape is quite different from the 90s and the early 2000s. I started real estate investing January of 1994. Maybe I've seen a couple of market cycles. Maybe I've done some really stupid deals. Maybe I've lost a lot of money in real estate. Maybe I've also done some really good deals and made a lot of money. So, scars are better than tattoos because they usually have a cooler story behind them. You know what I mean? All right, so let's get into this. Okay, so right now we are in an interesting time. There are people who are complaining that there's nothing to buy and no one will give them money to go buy. But I'm going to tell you right now, we're in the middle of every difficult season lies opportunity. And I'm in the middle of a very difficult deal right now. And just as an aside, if somebody's got an extra $2.5 million that they want to make some money on for the next 6 months, please come see me afterwards, okay? I can do something very productive with that. So I'm in the middle of a very difficult, challenging deal, but we're going to push through it. So let's talk about what exactly is subject to, because I got to explain what it is before we can understand the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right? Now, a lot of you have probably seen some fantastically produced, really great marketing in the area of subject to and real estate investing on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and so on, right? How many of you have seen that kind of stuff out there? People that 20 years ago didn't know what real estate was, and now they're just geniuses, right? Okay, 10 years ago they were selling drywall and plywood and boarding up houses for HUD and FHA, and now they're, rock stars. They're brilliant marketers. Brilliant marketers. But let's talk about what subject to is. I'm going to shock you. All of you, when you bought a house, when you bought a piece of land, when you bought any real estate, you bought it subject to. You bought it subject to easements, encroachments, future real estate taxes, past real estate taxes sometimes. You bought it subject to all sorts of things, right-of-ways, roads, all these things are things that limit what you can do with that real estate. You bought a piece of property that they already have granted a railroad the right to run a train by. They've already granted the electric company the right to string up poles and run wires. They've already granted the gas company the right to dig a trench and put in a cable and run gas lines through it. You bought it subject to all of those things, and it didn't freak anybody out, right? Because the title company said it was okay. You still had good, marketable, insurable title. Well, when we buy subject to, we're buying it subject to some restriction or some other documentation that's a exception to the title to the piece of property. Way back when we started paying attention to this stuff, about 700 years ago, back over in England and in Europe and elsewhere, we had this concept called fee simple absolute. You could own Brown Acre, and I could own Black Acre, and we could exchange them. And I would get fee simple title, and he would get fee simple title, and everybody would be happy. But there weren't any utility easements, there wasn't any taxes owed, there wasn't anything else. There were no roads. And you got the land, and then you had the ability to rent the land out to farmers, and you check a percentage of what crops they grew, and that would be your rent. Fantastic. Well, fast forward to modern society, we don't quite get that. So now we have these things. How many of you know what a mortgage is? Do you know what mortgages are referred to on a title commitment or a title report? They're referred to as a lien. Okay? How many of you know what a deed of trust is? Okay, a deed of trust is the equivalent of a mortgage. Some states we use mortgages, some states we use deeds of trust. Okay? Just a different way of securing a loan. So when we own a piece of real estate or when we're buying a piece of real estate, we can offer that real estate as collateral for a loan. Now, if you're going to get a loan to buy a piece of real estate, where would you go? Okay. If you're going to get a loan to buy a piece of real estate, where would you go to get the money? The bank. Okay. That's a relatively new American phenomenon. We've only been doing it for about 80 or 90 years. Okay. It's really kind of new. Before that, we did a lot of private seller financing before banks and institutions really came along. So what they refer to as traditional financing today is really actually kind of new stuff. But anyhow, I'm not going to digress there. So we're going to get a loan. And what does that mean? They're going to lend us the money to buy the real estate. And in exchange for that, we're going to give them back an IOU, a promise to repay them. And we're going to secure that promise with a mortgage or a lien against the real estate that says that if I don't make the payments to the First Bank of David, and I try and thumb my nose at him, he's going to go, okay, Watson, I'm just going to foreclose on you. And I'm going to take the house away from you and use whatever I resell the house for to pay back part of the debt that you owe me, and then I may come after you for the rest of it. Okay? So that's how the typical real estate transaction works, right? Have I lost anybody? Is anybody not clear about that? But what would happen if when you sold a house or when you bought a house, you didn't bring enough money to pay off the existing loan? What would happen then? The lien would still be on the property, right? And it'd still have to keep getting paid, right? Unless the title company missed it, and I've seen that happen once. I've seen that happen once. And that was a ugly mess. Yeah, I had to fire a client because they lied at closing, because they specifically failed to disclose the lien that the title examiner. So we had a title examiner do a sloppy job, and we had a former client of mine lie. And whoop, you're no longer a client of mine. Anyhow, off we go. So let's get into this, okay? I want to get into this a little bit deeper, but I want to back up and give you a perspective. There are people who want to sell their houses right now, but can't. And there's a reason they can't. They don't have enough equity. What does it take today to sell a house? Well, if you don't have somewhere between 12 to 15% equity in the property, you're not going to clear much of anything. By the time you get done with repairs, concessions, commissions, closing costs, etc., you're not going to leave the table with much. They're at a neutral position at best. And oh, by the way, they bought the house, everything was great. They accumulated more debt than they could handle, and now they're at war with each other over debt. Till death do us part. We've seen this thousands of times. And they need to move, or they want to move, or they don't like the neighborhood, or they got a job transfer, or this, or that, whatever. They need to move, but they don't have enough equity to sell. So let's just talk about a possibility. They can call you up and say, can you please buy my house? Please buy this house. And if you were a member of the buy and breathe generation of real estate investors, let me define who that is. You've been investing in real estate since 2012 until now. You're a member of the buy and breathe generation. Congratulations, because all you had to do to look like a genius is buy real estate and hold on to it. Just buy it and breathe, baby. Because they kept going up and up and up and up. And the market made you look like a rock star. The market has made lots of people on TikTok and on Instagram and on YouTube and on Facebook look like geniuses. And I just have to bite my tongue because I watch their marketing on Facebook and I know full well the crap behind them that I'm cleaning up. And I know full well they can't pay my bill. But they're out there as an expert. There's a couple of them like that right now. Anyhow. Okay, so they want to sell your house. So here's your solution. The investor offers to purchase the home subject to the existing loan. Why would I want to buy a house and not pay off the existing loan? The interest rate is 1. But there's another couple of reasons. Do you know what they are? Pardon me? The amortization that's occurred in creating the equity, yes. Those are the top 2 reasons right there. The low interest rate and the fact they've already built some equity by paying down towards the debt. What's another reason I want to buy that house subject to? Pardon me? I don't have to qualify. So I'm not capped at my limit by Freddie and Fannie. What's another reason? Y'all are on a roll. Come on.
Save these people from going into foreclosure.
Yeah, I'm going to possibly save them from going into foreclosure. Yes. Yes. Because a short sale is the kissing cousin to foreclosures on your credit report. It doesn't show up on my debt to income ratio. Correct. That's right. What else? What's another reason? There's one more that I'm thinking of that has something to do with county government. I can keep my real estate taxes lower. I can keep my real estate taxes lower because I will show it as a lower conveyance price. Yes. Okay. How many of you like to keep your real estate taxes down?
Everyone.
There you go. Okay. So we want to we can buy subject to the existing loan. Is this, and I want to be clear, and I want to be fair. Is there anybody in the audience that is like, Jeff, I know you're speaking English, but I have no clue what you're saying? It's okay. It's okay, because there's days that I speak and my assistant looks at me like, what did you say? That is like the dumbest or the most confusing thing. Okay, so we're talking about buying houses, okay? Because we want to accumulate houses. Why do we want to accumulate houses? Because we think it's going to make us wealthy. We think it's going to give us passive income. It's going to give us cash flow. It's going to build some wealth. We're going to be able to let our kids and grandkids inherit and so on. Great. Okay, wonderful. Some of us buy houses because we're addicted to it. Okay? Yeah, I've met some clients that are like that. Wow. Anyhow, I got one guy that he promised he'd stop at 100. He's at 140. He's a machine. He's a machine. He's a great guy. He invited me out the other day to go sailing. And unfortunately, I was headed off to some other city to go speak and teach. But yeah, I'll get back to him. Anyhow, all right. So we're buying houses and we're trying to find ways to buy houses without writing great big huge checks. And we're trying to find ways to buy houses without going to the bank and begging for money. And so buying a house subject to the existing mortgage and stepping into their shoes and continuing to make those payments is a great way to buy a house from somebody who needs to sell. They don't necessarily have enough equity, but I can step in, pay you some moving money. I might be able to pay you a little bit more if I can take over this cheaper debt, and so on. Are we okay? Thank you. Great. I'm glad you made me do that remedial because that actually sounded good to me too. Okay, that was good. Somebody should have recorded that. I hope they did. Because that was Watson actually made sense for us. All right. So here's a couple of things that we're going to talk about when we do a subject to deal. Okay? We can offer them cash or payments for their equity. When I bought 3 houses subject to a year and a half ago from the same landlord, I gave him 3 steps to the deal. Frank, I'm going to give you $5,000 when we sign the paperwork. Why $5,000? Because he needed $5,000 to finish the kitchen remodel for his own home to keep his wife happy. So he got his $5,000. Frank, a year from now, I'm going to give you another $5,000. And Frank, when I give you the $5,000, the month after that, I'm going to start making payments to you of $300 and some odd a month for the next 10 years. But at the same time, I'm taking over the payments on all 3 houses that I'm buying from you. You're going to deed these houses to my trust. I'll have a different trust for each house. And my trustee, which is, by the way, me, is going to take over these 3 houses, and I'm going to do what I want to with them. And I'm going to make the payments. And so on one of the 3 houses, I took one look at it, and I said, no. Called a wholesaler and said, what will you give me for it? And I wrote him a check to take away the house. Because I was not going to rehab a house in a bad location. And I was like, the cheapest thing I can do is pay $12,000 to pay off the debt, to get the wholesaler to take it, and I'm done with it. The other 2 houses, I was thrilled to get my hands on. Long-term quality tenants in both of them. Well-maintained houses, because I knew the guy he'd rehabbed them and done a good job with them. So I could then take them over. And what did I do once I took them over? I started making the payments. I changed the insurance coverages on the properties. Okay, by the way, some of the people marketing this stuff on TikTok and so on, they don't know how to do the insurance coverage changes. And so the people who watch the videos and then go screw it up, that's who's in my office on a regular basis going, Jeff, the bank sent me a nasty letter saying they want the loan, they want the house back in the seller's name. What do? I only fixed 3 of those last month in July. Only 3. Okay? Yeah, if you want, I can show you the letter. Okay? So, we take care, we keep making the payments. We change and adjust the insurance, but there's something else that I do with these houses that everybody should really like. I raise the rent, but what did I do in addition to raising the rent? I collected the rent. I started collecting the rent. I bumped the rent up a little bit. One of the tenants complained, but had no choice because she looked around and said, whoa, even with the $100 increase, I'm still like $400 below market. Wow. And I'm like, yeah, I'll let you stay this way because it works out for us, okay? So I bumped the rent a little bit, collect the rents, make the payments, keep everybody happy, okay? Have I done some work and improvements on the properties? Yes, I have. So that's why I do these things. So I structure it with some cash, some payments to the seller, and take over his debt. and then I run the property as a landlord. How many of you are landlords? How many of you are running as a property right now, a house you took subject to somebody else's loan? Right? Yeah, same. Yeah. I've got one left that way. Because out of the 3 that I bought from this guy, one I got rid of right away because I didn't want it in a bad location. The other one I just sold today, this weekend, signed the papers yesterday at the bank. And the last one I still got. Okay? But the one I sold, I'm rolling into 3 houses down in Florida. So, okay. Anyhow. All right. So I use a trustee as a buyer. Now, let me tell you what happens in most audiences when I talk about using a trust as a buyer. I get 3 reactions. I get the eyes glaze over. Like, uh-oh, all of a sudden it's complicated. I don't want to listen. I don't understand. I don't think I'll figure this out. I'm just going to be quiet. I get the super geeky, nerdy people, not looking at anybody in particular, that get all excited because they want to discuss all the nuances of trusts. And then I get the people that are like, explain yourself, Watson. Tell me more. So I got a question for you. How many of you are in that 3rd category? Explain yourself, Watson. Tell me more. Great. How many of you would be in that 2nd category of you're going to geek out a little bit, you're going to nerd out a little bit? Yeah, Randolph, put your hand back down. We already knew that about you. All right, so let's get into this, okay? What is a trust? In fact, I've got an article I just wrote for the National Radio Newsletter on this topic. A trust is a private contract between 2 or more parties. Is it an entity filed with the state? No, it is not. It is not a corporation. It is not an LLC. It is a private contractual relationship and arrangement. I'm going to give you in one sentence the best example of a trust. But I need everybody to be paying attention as the mic does its thing, as we're just doing this to see how it works out. Everybody paying attention to me? I'm going to give you a really good example illustration of what is a trust. Here, hold my beer. That's it. I created a trust. Who's the trustee? Right there. What's the asset in the trust? The beer. Who's the beneficiary? Me. By the way, folks, this is water, not beer. But the phrase is here, hold my beer, or hold my beer. Okay? That's how we create a trust. He agreed to hold it. What's his job? Don't let anybody else drink it and don't spill it. Right? So his trustee is to manage it, to protect it, take care of it. Make it available for my benefit when I come back for it, right? That's how a trust works. Does that make sense? Or is anybody like, I don't get it?
But when you're the trustee, what's the difference?
What do you mean?
Well, if you are the trustee of your own trust,
Right.
is there any difference between paying beer or you keep it?
There is a legal difference because I cannot wear all 3 hats. I can't create the trust, be the trustee, and be the beneficiary. So I make sure the beneficiary is one of my companies that has a separate tax ID number and separate legal existence.
The beneficiary could be a family member too?
The beneficiary can be a family member as well. But in this particular instance, as you'll see in these slides, I'm going to tell you how I structure these things step by step by step, okay? The buyer in a subject to transaction is the trustee of a specifically drafted acquisition and title holding trust. Who establishes the trust? You can take pictures of that. Let me walk you through it. Who establishes the trust? You, the investor. You are the grantor and the trustee that forms and operates the trust. Now, why do I do it this way? There's a couple of reasons. Because y'all are control freaks. Y'all want all the control you can get. You want control without responsibility. I know you. I know you well. You want the money, but you don't want to pay the bills. I got you. I understand. Okay? You're like my kids. Okay? You're like my kids. Okay? You, the investor, the grantor, and the trustee that forms and operates the trust. Who owns the trust? The trust is owned by the beneficiaries. The beneficiary is your multiple member buy and hold LLC with its own tax ID number. We just got geeky. We just nerded out there for a second. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes. Many reasons why a multi-member. Because it has to file its own separate tax return as a partnership. So it's a clear, distinct legal entity other than apart from you personally. So make sure it's a valid trust, and then I have the opportunity to play a little game in the tax code later on. Okay? So good question. Glad you asked it. All right. So who owns the trust? The trust is owned by one of my LLCs that I have other members in. It's a partnership. It files its own separate partnership tax return, and that's where I can bury some dirty laundry, some stuff that may or may not be really deductible, but I think it is, and I got a good faith argument, so I'm going to do it. Sir?
Can the multi-member can it be like a LPs?
I'm sorry?
Can it be a GP and then the rest LPs?
No, because that's not a multiple member LLC, because the general partners and limited partners, it's a partnership. We want a multiple member LLC, not a partnership agreement. You need to have at least 2 members to the LLC that are, no, one's active, one can be passive. One can be just a 3% owner, like an adult child, a parent, a grandparent, a sibling. For all my friends who are single, you know, that's what I tell them. Okay? All right. So what the key here is, it's a separate legal entity with its own tax ID number. But I'm going to give you one more reason, and this is where I'm going to make some of you, I'm going to lose some of you, but we're going to come back and pick you up, okay? How would you like to be able to still change your 2022 taxes here in August of 2023? Just thought I'd ask. Because if I've not yet filed my 22 tax returns, and I realized that, oh, I'm going to sell this house in 23, okay, I'm going to move it from my buy and hold over to my flipping company by amending the trust agreement, and then I'll just go ahead and do my return now. So here I am in 23 doing legal adjustments to my taxes in 22. Is that pretty cool? Yeah. Now, do they teach that to you on TikTok? No. You've got to go to some higher advanced education to learn that stuff. Sir in the back. I haven't filed a return yet, so no, they don't know about it. And I just moved the asset from one entity to another entity because I'm going to resell it this year. Okay? So yeah, I understand your question. Yes, ma'am.
Have you not done that before?
I've done it.
You have?
Oh yeah. Yeah, happily.
Have you ever been challenged about your good faith of spending?
No. No, I have not. And my accountant and I have a conversation about it at least twice a year. And he knows, my accountant and I have this philosophy. You see this line right here? When it comes to deductions, this is me. You got me? When it comes to reporting my income, I over-report my income. I will always add a couple extra $1,000 to my income. Why? Because I just don't know, maybe I missed a 1099 somewhere. And I always file late, we always pull the transcript, we always make sure that I don't miss anything that the IRS already knows about, because I will never underreport my income. Never, 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 never. That's tax fraud. That's a no-no. You can go to jail for that. But when it comes to arguing about deductions, what is an ordinary, necessary, and reasonable business expense? Well, let's have that conversation. Okay? Yeah, great question. Thank you. All right. So we're at this little moment right now. Has anybody learned anything so far yet? No one's going to raise, oh, a couple of hands. Great, good. So let's do this again. If you've learned something, raise your hands. Great, fantastic. So here's what I need to know. Just want to know. How many of you are like, Jeff, there's 3 categories, and I'm somewhere between serious and curious. Because the 3rd category is checked out. Okay? So as long as you're here, you're probably either serious or curious about subject 2, right? How many of you have checked out? You've mentally left the room, but you're still physically here. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you just kind of go. Okay? Because if this doesn't serve your needs, then that's cool. No harm. All right? But if you're somewhere between curious and serious, I want you to do yourself a big favor and plan on being with us on the 19th of August for some really intense training. Okay? And you're going to get a QR code up on the screen in a little while. I got a lot more stuff to share with you. You're going to get a QR code so you can register for it. But without getting Kim's permission, I have started to push this link out to some other audiences. So this could become a pretty large event with other people from other states deciding to get on this same live Zoom training that we're going to do on the 19th. Okay? I'm not saying there's going to be thousands or hundreds of people there, but there could be quite a few people because I've decided that we're going to push this one.
Before you move on from trust, and not to open a can of worms, but I hear the conversation about a land trust. How is that similar, different? Help me understand what that means.
So a land trust is a common man term for what I call a grantor revocable title holding trust. It's a trust designed to hold title to a piece of real estate, land. Okay? I personally don't like the term land trust because it's too basic and it's been too abused. And a lot of title companies and title underwriters don't like them anymore because too many people have done shady stuff with it. So I like to refer to them as grantor revocable, which means the person who created the trust can change it, amend it, and cancel it. Title holding, which means it's going to hold title to a piece of real estate. Grantor revocable title holding trust. Same thing. Okay? Just more words charged by the hour. Got me? Cool. Great question. I know you did not open a big can of worms, so I'm glad you asked the question. In the back, and then we're going to move on. Why buy through a trust? Because with the trust, I can do after the fact tax planning, what I can't with an LLC. Great question. The other thing is, with the trust, I have privacy as to who owns the trust. With an LLC, I may not. Another good question. I'm sorry?
Will an S-corp work?
No, I do not want to use an S-corp. I do not want to ever have any of my rentals in an S-corp. Because the extra taxes that I'll pay on that are no-nos. Really? Let's just do that. Yeah, okay. Okay. So we took the jacket off. Let's see how that works, okay? Next will be the shoes. No, I got some really cool socks on tonight, you know? Yeah. Pardon me? Well, I was either going to wear these socks or my Southwest Airlines socks.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah, but anyway. All right, so y'all are a fun audience. I really like this. Thank you. So, here's the big question. I can't believe it's not been asked yet. Y'all have been holding out on me. But Jeff, what about the Dumont sale clause? I heard. Yeah, well, let's get to it, okay? It's real. Anybody that tells you it's not is lying to you. How many of you have ever taken the time to read one of these? It's usually paragraph 14 or 17 of the typical mortgage and deed of trust. Yeah. How many of you have ever written one? I've written several. Okay. It's a real risk. Read it. You'd be amazed what violates the due on sale clause. Did you know putting the house out on a long-term lease violates the due on sale clause? Did you know selling the house on a land installment contract where you still keep the deed in your own name violates the due on sale clause? How about that? Sometimes even taking out a second mortgage can violate it. Yeah. But the biggest myth out there when it comes to the due on sale clause and subject to transactions is, oh, we're going to use a special trust and we're going to invoke the Garn-St. Germain and Depository Act of 1982 to say that the way we formed this trust with this with this subject to transaction doesn't violate the due on sale clause. Baloney. Bogus. Read the federal statute. For the Garn-St. Germain Act to apply to a trust transaction, the owner of the house who borrowed the money from the bank has to create the trust. They have to be the trustee, they have to be the primary beneficiaries, and they have to continue to live in the house. Now, do I want the seller to create my trust when I buy their house sub to? Absolutely not. No way. Why? Because they can revoke and amend it, and I don't want to give them that power. Do I want them to be the beneficiaries of the trust? No. I'm greedy. It's mine. Me. I want to make the money. Do I want them to continue to live in the house? No way. I want the house, and I want to be able to say who lives in the house. So if you have an 8th grade education and find the right statute and read it, you'll realize that what they're peddling on Instagram or on YouTube or wherever it is doesn't work. Okay? You know, and God bless him, I'm going to be kind when I say this. There's a certain individual that's been doing subject to transactions for a really long time, compared with most people. He did about 108 of them in Georgia, circa 2004 through 2007, and then walked away from all of them in 2008 and 9. Moved to Costa Rica and let them all go into foreclosure. Yeah, not my kind of person. I had to really hold it back when I was at the same event that they were speaking at. I had to really be careful. I was like, "Dear Lord, put a duct tape over my mouth so I don't say something I shouldn't say." But we got through it. Okay, we're fine. Anyhow, moving on. So a trust won't get around it, and oh, by the way, plan accordingly. What is your backup plan if, God forbid, the bank decides to exercise the due on sale clause? Do you have one? Because when I do a subject to transaction, I have a backup plan.
Have you had that?
I have not gotten the threatening letter. Not me personally. People who have hired me to fix the problem have, and I have fixed the problem for them, and we're going to get into that, how I fixed it, okay?
But won't the banks kind of work with you? You call them in ahead of time?
No, don't do that. Don't call them ahead of time. I don't know who's teaching you that one, but don't do it.
That's just my online thing.
Don't do it.
Okay.
I'm going to teach you something you need to know about banks. Very little intelligent life exists within their walls. Very little. I mean, seriously, right now, the United States banking system is insolvent because they own so many bonds with such a low interest rate on them that now that the Fed's raised rates, those bonds are so worthless compared to what the market value says versus the face amount that they're upside down. That's why Silicon Valley Bank went under. That's why the other banks went under. Is because they bought too many of these low dollar bonds and boom. So there's not much intelligent life. All right, let's get into this. Let's talk about the sub 2 problems you must avoid. Taking the wrong loan subject to will give you a bad deal. I tell people, do not do sub 2 on an FHA loan. One of my students who bought one of my courses apparently didn't listen to that module. He apparently was listening to somebody else on TikTok or Instagram, and he went ahead and did an FHA loan sub 2 in San Antonio, Texas. And then we got to see the lovely letter that came from the bank saying, you either deed it back or we're going to foreclose. So we figured out how to solve it. We'll get into that. So FHA and VA, I avoid them. They have a much higher risk of getting called, one FHA loan at a time per borrower, and higher consequences if called. Okay? We don't mess with them. There's a different way I do those deals. Modify the loan, then acquire it substitute. That was a big deal about a year ago. A big deal about a year ago. And then I spoke at a large event of real estate investors in Dallas, Texas in early November, and I walked them through the risks of doing that. And all of a sudden, no one talked about it anymore. All the marketing ideas with that just went away. Amazing. Let me tell you why. Because when you do a loan modification, the borrower, the owner, the occupant of the house who's modifying the loan is making a written representation under the penalty of perjury on the modification application that they're going to continue to remain in and occupy the house. But if they're going to modify it and sell it sub 2, they're lying. Now, how many of you want to go lie to a federally insured institution? Because that's a great way to go to Club Fed. 3 hots and a cot. Okay? All right. So I don't do material misrepresentations. Okay? I don't do wire fraud or mail fraud. Because, oh, by the way, now that we've induced the bank to modify the loan under fraudulent representation, and now we continue to send them money electronically or through the postal service, we're now committing mail or wire fraud. Yes, I know people who've gone to jail for that. Not jail, prison. Yeah. Okay? What about those big arrearages? But Jeff, there's people who haven't made their house payment in 2.5 years. And those arrearages are so big. How do I handle them? Relax. There's a way. We'll get there. All right. Great question. How about this one? Ignoring your state's foreclosure rescue law. Oh, yeah. Sub 2 on houses that are in foreclosure? Some states, there's rules on that. Colorado's got laws on it. Illinois' got laws on it. Florida's got laws on it. Oregon, Washington, California, Arizona. That's number ones I can rattle off the top of my head. I don't remember if Missouri or Kansas does. Kansas does not, if I remember right. Missouri, I can't remember. Okay? But you want to pay attention. Okay? So transferring title from a person in default without paying off that debt and any senior debt is potentially criminal in many states, particularly Colorado, Florida, and California. Okay? So we got to figure out a solution. 20 or more states have a foreclosure rescue statute. Now, somebody here could do us all a big favor, and they could pull out their smartphone, and they could pull up their favorite browser, and they could type in Kansas foreclosure rescue laws and see what shows up. And someone else could type in Missouri foreclosure rescue laws and see what shows up. Okay? So if there's something that shows up, you want to read it. Now, let's do a simple internet search and figure it out. Now, how many of you only invest in Kansas? How many of you only invest in Missouri? How many of you only invest in Ohio? How many of you only invest in Florida? See? We're not all locked down to one state. We're not trees. We can move. Okay? And we do. All right. So, if your state is one of the 20, read what's required. And each state is a little different, so consult with a local attorney. Okay? Consult with a local attorney. I'm going to say it again. Can you still work a deal? Yes. Should it be a loan mod? No, no way. All right, so let's talk about some of the options on some of these complex deals. Because sub 2 is not always the best way to go. There's other ways to get the result. So let's talk about the first one. And this is mandatory on any deal I ever do. This is mandatory. I was talking with a buddy of mine that runs one of the most profitable title companies in Ohio. I'm talking to him today on my drive to the airport. The number one thing he would like all real estate investors to think about doing, even as you're negotiating the contract with the seller, call your title company and order an O&E. Order a current owner lien search. You want to find out if you're really dealing with the right people. You might think that Fred is selling you the house. But then when title comes back, they might tell you that Fred has 4 brothers, that they own just as much of the house as Fred. So Fred can only contract to sell you 1/5 of the house. How many of you want to buy 1/5 of the house? Yeah, it's kind of hard. Okay? So you want to pull the current owner lien or an O&E. O&E stands for owners and exceptions. I go with exceptions because there's exceptions include encumbrances. Okay? I understand where you're coming from. All right. So the next thing is we want to locate and interview a local attorney as to your specific state statutes and subject to purchases. Here's the 3 questions I would ask an attorney to find out if they're the right one for you. Number 1, do you yourself invest in real estate? If the answer is no, next. Not the next question, the next attorney. Number 2, what experience do you have with the laws in this state regarding foreclosure rescue and subject to? And number 3 is, what's it like working with you? What's your turnaround time? What's your hourly rate? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Those are 3 quick questions. Now, so here's a strategy. So we've got a house. They're behind on their payments. They've been threatened with foreclosure. They're in a highly protected state like Colorado. We're going to bring their payments current as part of buying the property via a land installment contract. Why am I doing this? Title stays in their name, so I've not violated the state law. I'm giving them money towards the purchase of the property that they can use to bring the payments current, and I'm doing it through, this is my down payment, I'm buying the house on a land installment contract. What does land contract mean? It means when I get done paying according to the terms of the agreement, you got to give me the deed. Let me say that again. A land contract says that when I get done paying according to the terms of the agreement, you got to give me the deed. Okay? So then your trustee is your buyer of ND. 6 months later, after you've kept the payments current, modify the land contract into a deeded subject acquisition. Why 6 months later? Because they've been current on their payments now for 6 months. They're no longer in default. Therefore, their foreclosure rescue statute no longer applies. You're welcome. Some of us lay awake at night thinking about how to get around the IRS and state laws. Okay? Yes, that is one of my favorite things to do, is dream and scheme about how to make more money. Yes, ma'am. Oh, please, a little bit louder. My land contract says I have the right of occupancy and possession and enjoyment. Great question. Yeah. They've moved out. I've moved in, or I've moved someone else in. I'm buying it according to the land contract. The land contract gets recorded. I'm now in the chain of title. You can't go around me. You can't get away from me. I'm now there. Oh, by the way, it says 6 months later, we're going to modify it, cancel the land contract, and now I'm not a deeded owner. Yeah. Have I done that one? Yes, I have. Okay. Next strategy. Oh, I don't like land contracts. Or I'm in Texas. Or I'm in Maryland. Well, then let's do an option to purchase subject to. And bring their payments current with option consideration. Have the option recorded and record a mortgage to secure the option based on the amount of money paid for the option. Later, convert the lease option to a subject to deal. So how many of you have ever gone into a house deal thinking you were going to do X with it, and at the end you did Y with it instead? How many of you ever bought a house thinking I was going to fix it up and rent it? How many of you have ever done that? And you turned out you sold it instead, right? You thought you were going to do X, and instead you did Y. How many of you ever thought you were going to buy a house, fix it up, and resell it and make a profit on it, and found out you lost control of the costs, and now you got to hold it as a rental? Been there too, yes. All right. So, okay. Now, here's another one. We've got a good friend. She lives in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And in 2016, she was a brand new novice real estate investor. And she started working with some really high quality people in Colorado Springs. Guys like David Tilney and Michael Jakes. And she now has a $10 million portfolio there in Colorado Springs. She's worked really hard. She learned that it was better to share the deal with a private money partner because she'd rather have half of a good deal than all of nothing. And so she'd call up Mike and he'd bring in the money to catch up the arrears and she'd take over the house and boom, we're good. So be willing to share a deal with a private money partner. They fund the cash needs for either an option in exchange for a piece of the deal, and a trusted private money partner is a better choice than risking mortgage or loan fraud. I would rather have half of a good deal than all of a bad deal, a risky deal, or no deal. Anybody disagree with me? No, you don't agree. You don't disagree. Okay, great. All right, so let's talk about another risk the subject to. They talk about, oh, well, we're just going to get a power of attorney. Do you know the responsibility that comes with a power of attorney? You're now a fiduciary. Have you researched what fiduciary duties are? Makes you kind of think twice about, do you really want to be power of attorney or not, huh? So, we got to be careful because the fiduciary duty is now upon your shoulders as attorney in fact, which means that you must act for the benefit of the seller, not yourself. Now, you can do things that are mutually and equally beneficial, okay, as long as it's disclosed in writing. But I have people come to me and go, oh, Jeff, I got power of attorney on this sub-2 deal, and I'm just going to sell the house without their signature. I'm like, huh? If the deed's not in your name, no, you're not. It's just all sorts of crazy things. All right. Here's my all-time favorite, though. And oh, by the way, 8 days ago, I had a conversation with a couple with this problem. They had sold a house subject to, and the investor that bought it from them subject to has stopped making the payments. Yeah, it happens. Not making the payments because of bad cash flow management, because of stupidity, because of a divorce, because of whatever. I mean, the guy that bailed out on 108 of them stopped making payments on 108, blamed it on a divorce. I don't know. Whatever. Not having reserves. So this is an important thing. If you're going to play in the real estate space, particularly in the buy and hold subject to space, which is where I love to be, you need to have some reserves. If you don't have reserves, you need to have a private money partner on speed dial. Okay? Okay. Attempting to discount the payoff. I knew a guy that bought a bunch of stuff subject to, stopped making the payments because he thought he was going to get a better discount from the bank on a short sale. David, he was going to try and short sale the whole subdivision, not just the house. So that's our resident short sale expert right there, okay? So that was a bad thing. He ended up in Club Fed. Seriously, he did. All right. So inadequate disclosures to the seller. You need to make sure the seller understands what's going on because clear is kind. Kind is clear. To be unclear in your communication is not only to be unkind, but it's to be dangerous. Confused minds say one of two things. No, or that's illegal. So do we want confused minds? No, we want them to be like very clear and very understanding of what's happening. All right? If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. I don't care what you say you said to them. if I don't see a piece of paper on it with their initials or signature saying it, it didn't happen. Okay? Now, this is the one that gets me all the time. I've been sued for this, what I'm about to tell you. Okay? Back in 2010, 11, a guru out of Austin, Texas came out with this idea of, we'll buy houses subject to, and then we'll assign the deal to somebody else. We'll take a $15,000, $20,000 assignment fee, and then we'll let the person who paid us the fee step into the house, and they'll start making the payments. And the seller that you bought the house from, that entrusted you, that you built the relationship with, that you developed the rapport with, that they trusted you, and they don't know anything about this other person, feels betrayed. So when I blew the whistle and I called that one bogus, guess what I was given? I was given a lawsuit saying, oh, you're just, whatever. He didn't have the stones to go through with it, so it didn't go anywhere. But, so I'm not afraid to say this, deeding the property to someone else before the underlying institutional debt is fully paid is wrong, dangerous, and will get you in trouble. But somebody's going to be, but Jeff, what if I want to resell the house to somebody else because I don't want to be a landlord and I can't afford to pay off the existing debt? What do I do? Relax, I got you covered. There's a way to do it correctly and legally in 48 out of the 50 states. And we happen to be in one of those 48, so we're good. Okay? So now, let's talk about what are the exit strategies on subject to, because now I've given you some of the bad and the ugly. Let's talk about some good. I gave you a taste of good, low interest rates, keep your real estate taxes down, lower your debt-to-income ratio, no over limits and things like that. All looks good on your financial statements. So let's give you some other good stuff. My favorite thing to do with sub-2 is buy and hold long-term as a rental. I love that. Why? Why do I like to buy sub-2 and hold as a rental? I have more. They appreciate. They go up in value. I get cash flow. I have tax deductions off of depreciation and things like that. Okay? Buy sub-2, fix and flip for cash. One of my favorite buddies, business partner of mine, guy that is the king of systems and dominates the Dayton, Ohio market. That's his number one methodology right now. He buys stuff sub-2, goes in, cleans it up, fixes it up, resells it, and makes bank. Okay? Buy sub-2 and resell on a wrap land installment contract. That is the way to do it. If you're going to buy, you say, I don't want to be a landlord. I'm not able to sell to an end buyer who can cash me out. Well then, okay, you'll buy it subject to, the deed goes into the name of your trustee, and now your trustee sells to somebody else on a wrap all-inclusive land installment contract. The deed stays with the trustee, the payments come in, and from those payments you make the underlying debt service to the bank. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you guys something because I want you to do something. I want you to take some action. Because until you start taking action, it's all just mental cotton candy. You know? All just kind of like Fugazi, it'll float away. So we're going to take some action here. I'm going to share with you 3 powerful questions to ask sellers to begin the subject to conversation. If I share them with you, will you write them down? Or will you take pictures of them? Yes. And if you take pictures of them, will you go back and look at them? Will you practice saying them? Okay. Here's question number 1. Why would you want to sell a nice house like this? My friend my mentor, Pete Fortunato, taught me this question. How many of you know who Pete is? Pete is a legend. And just to have that man call you and ask you for some advice is like, pinch me, is this really happening? You know? So why would you want to sell a nice house like this? Next question is, what are your immediate cash needs? Where did I steal this one from? Eddie Speed. What are your immediate cash needs? 2 key words there. Immediate and needs, not wants, needs. Why are you selling your house? Oh, I got to go pay for my daughter's college tuition. Well, how much do you need to pay right now? Oh, I need to pay $5,000 right now, but then I can put it on a payment plan. Okay, well, if I give you $5,000 to make the payments to you, will that work? Okay, we'll get down real quick. Question number 3. This is the crunch one. This is my question. This is the Watson original in here. If I don't begin to make your payments, who will? Ed, I understand you want to move. Ed, I understand that you're having a hard time making these house payments. Ed, if I don't start taking over your house payments, who's going to start taking them? Who's going to make them? You, right? You don't want to, so that's your way out. So if I don't begin to make your payments, who will? You got to remind them of where you are in the situation. Okay? So if they're like, well, I want you to do this, this, and this for me. No, I'm sorry. I'm not here to give you money. I'm here to make money along with you. I'm not here to rob you, but I'm not here to be robbed myself. Okay? Now, I lied to you folks because I said there were 3 questions, and I'm going to lie and I'm going to tell you there's a 4th one. Okay? This one is an Eddie Speed version, but I've polished it with a little bit of Pete Fortunato. Would you be interested in a tax strategy offer, or do you enjoy paying extra taxes? And folks, there's something that you have to do when you ask these questions. And it's a real simple thing you have to do. Shut up. Ask the question and then shut up.
Right.
Stop talking. Exactly, Brian. And folks, if you're like me, sometimes you literally do this. I make it look like I got my hand on my chin in my hand, but it's really like, keep your trap shut, Watson. Don't blow it. Don't blow it. Hang in there. Keep your mouth shut. The silence will get so uncomfortable that they'll eventually have to say something. Okay? And don't you be the one. And just listen to what they tell you. And then ask a follow-up question. So if we jump back, why would you want to sell a nice house like this? Well, you know, I'm getting up there in years, and I really don't like going up and down the stairs anymore, so we want to get a different house that's all on one level. Okay, I can understand you want to get a house on one level, but is that the only reason you want to sell your house? So what did I just do? I listened to what they said. I repeated it back to them in the form of a question to get more information from them. This is not for me to talk about how smart and wonderful I am. This is not for me to talk about how many deals I've done. This is for me to find out what their situation is and how I can solve their problem. Because if I only make money when I solve somebody else's house problem. And so what are your immediate cash needs? And ask this question and just shut up. And then if I don't begin to make your payments, who will? That's kind of the beginning of a takeaway clause in there. How many of you understand sales and takeaway clauses? There's a little bit of a takeaway clause in there. And then, would you be interested in a tax strategy offer, or do you enjoy paying extra taxes? Say that with a smile on your face and then just shut up. Because who knows, they might be a progressive Democrat and they want to pay more in taxes. You know? They might. I don't know. But my Democrat friends don't want to pay more in taxes. My Republican friends don't want to pay more in taxes. But my progressive friends, well, yeah, they will. Okay? I just want to be clear there. All right? So I'm going to wrap this up. And I'm going to tell you what motivates me, why I do this. Why am I in Kansas City, Kansas, instead of back home in Ohio, enjoying a quiet evening at home with my kids and my grandkids? Because better and higher. One of my goals is designed around what do I want my grandkids to tell their grandkids about me. And I want them to say, Papa Jeff made the world a better place. Papa Jeff encouraged real estate investors to be willing to invest in good education. Papa Jeff did and helped people and coached them and showed them how to do better, more profitable deals. He helped them with integrity so that real estate investors had integrity. And there were people who did what they said they were going to do when or before they said they were going to do it. And then build a better community. Remember I talked about at the beginning how I'm a fan of affordable home ownership because it builds a better community. Homeowners build better communities than renters do, just the way it is because you've got pride of ownership. So build a better community. This is one of the reasons. I want to build a better real estate investing community. I want to be praised. I want real estate investors to be praised and commended by their communities rather than attacked as being slumlords. I want them to be complimented. And I'm going to put in a plug here, folks. We need to run our businesses like Chick-fil-A runs theirs. Where you care about the community. Where you empower people to do things to help others. I'll never forget this picture I saw of the former CEO of Chick-fil-A on a Sunday afternoon giving away free chicken sandwiches to people in the Atlanta airport after the power had been out for 6 hours. They had opened up stores outside of the airport, called in their workers on a Sunday. You know they never open on a Sunday. But for this disaster they did, they created a bunch of food and they took it and they gave it to people who'd been in the dark and not been able to eat for hours. That's the kind of stuff. You've got to be able to be willing to give back to the community. I want to inspire investors to give back to their communities. And lastly, I want to elevate the standard. I want real estate investors to be serious about their craft, serious about their business, serious about doing the right thing the right way at the right time and helping people. It's not about how much money I can make. It's about how many other lives I can impact and how many problems I can solve. So for that, to that, Kim and I have conspired together, and we're going to do a subject to investing class on Saturday the 19th. It's going to be virtual. It will be recorded, but I want you there virtually. That way you get your questions answered. Now, you're going to say, okay, Jeff, well, what do I do? How do I do this? It's a half-day intensive on contracts, disclosures, and deal structures designed to protect you and your sellers. I'm going to break out my documents. I'm going to show you guys how I do a subject to deal, what paperwork I use, why I use it. I'm going to explain all of that to you. Now, how are you going to take advantage of this? Well, see that little QR code? All of you are good at taking your phones out, right? So let's go. Get your phones out and set it up and go for it, okay? Now, some of you are going to be like, well, Jeff, I don't know what I'm doing on the 19th. Well, are you going to do something that has the potential of changing your family dynamics? Are you going to do something that has the potential of making you several $100,000 more dollars? Well, if an afternoon out on the boat is going to do that, okay, great. But if you can take 9 to 1 on a Saturday, learn skills that are going to let you build wealth for not just you, but for the next couple of generations, go for it. Kim, you were going to say something?
I had one person, they really wanted to come to your event, but I'm sorry to be fortunate. I was speaking to the state.
They're going to go, my buddy Pete's speaking against me the same day. Where is he going to be that day? What can I tell you? What can I tell you? well, anyway, whatever. What can I tell you? Pete's a good guy. Okay, so there it is, the QR code, even bigger, better for you. All right, QR code's up there. Now, some of you are going to say, hey, Watson, I'm not curious, and I'm certainly not checked out. So that means I'm really serious. And I want to maximize what I'm doing with this opportunity. I want to really understand what's happening. So for those of you that are serious, not just curious, but serious about subject to, I'm going to give you a chance right now. Take $600 off of that. You can use the promo, where is it? There. Where is it? I don't see it. BU, yes. So you go to SeriousSub2.com. SeriousSub2.com. I don't know why that link's not on there. But you go to SeriousSub2.com. You can knock $600 off of that. You can grab it now, dig through it now before the 19th, and get way ahead of the rest of the crowd. So with that being said, peace. Watson out.
Questions here for a while.
20 questions.
All right.
No one person gets to ask all 20 though.
20 questions.
20 questions.
Can we all hear, or do I need to run the mic? Can we hear you guys? I think we can.
What advice do you have on just the actual facilitation of the transaction in terms of making sure that you're paying the payments? I've heard of not a transaction coordinator, but
Servicing company.
there you go.
One of the ways to do it is set up a servicing company that collects the payments from the tenants, and then they make the monthly payment to the bank. I don't use servicing companies on my deals. I've got an amazing assistant that tracks everything, and that's how we do it. What I will tell you is have reminders, multiple reminders of what you've got to do on what day to make sure things are paid. And all the houses that you take subject to, all of those mortgages have got to be paid for that month before you go buy any groceries. Number 2.
I have 2 subject to deals in hand. The lender on both is Wells. They've recently sold both of those mortgages to Freedom Mortgage. Any advice on transferring to a new lender?
Well, you don't have any control over that.
I know.
So what I would do is this. I would take them sub 2 all day long. Because when they've done that, that tells me that they've separated the ownership from the servicing and they're not a portfolio, and so go grab the deal.
No, I mean, I've got them now.
Okay, so
I've got to live through going from Wells to now paying Freedom Mortgage. I'm assuming I've got to get a new third-party authorization.
you need to get a new...
The insurance is fixed.
The insurance should transfer over.
Okay.
All of that information should transfer over from Wells to Freedom. Okay? The only thing that you really got to watch out for is making sure that you get the appropriate hello and goodbye letters from one servicer leaving and the new one stepping in, so that you know where the payment needs to be goes to.
The loans waiting for the goodbye. Actually, today they're supposed to issue the
goodbyes.
Well, the new Freedom Mortgage. Here's your loan number.
Yeah.
So I've already talked to the.
The next step then is, once you get that, can you go into a portal that they make available and set those payments up on auto?
I couldn't do it with Wells because it would only allow the people on the mortgage to do that. So
I know. So one of the things I did when I took over a Wells mortgage is I had that seller create the online account, and then I took over his login and password.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't comfortable with that, so.
That's fine.
Did you turn your mic on?
I did.
Okay, if you want to use the handheld or whichever one you want to do, it's just harder to hear you. Let's hit the button on this. No, don't touch that. There you go.
See, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a technology expert. All right.
That's good. Thank you.
So how do you feel about the trust to help try to prevent anything like a subject of getting called?
A trust will not prevent the loan from being called.
I'm saying if we name the trust, like John and Susie Homemaker Trust, and I manage the trust.
Well, okay, so I name trust very similar to that because I always want to keep track of who did I buy it from and what the address of the house is. So I always set my trust up with the name of the last name of the seller and the address. The NERAD 10121 Baltic. You know?
Yeah,
that got me. That, yeah, there's a legitimate logical reason for it, and I have no deceptive intent when I do it that way. Okay, good question. Yes, ma'am. Whoa, I can't hear you. Your voice is way too soft. Let me come over here. You will share the microphone.
So if you're new to real estate investing, would this be a strategy that you recommend getting into?
Are you serious or are you dabbling? Then check it out. Because this is a great way to accumulate quality properties without borrowing gobs of money and without writing large checks of your own money. Okay? So if you're serious, if you're just looking, if you think that this is if real estate investing, in your opinion, is I'm going to go from zero to decamillionaire in 2 months, this ain't for you. Okay? But if you're looking to say this is a long-term life change, then yeah, check this out. It is not too difficult to learn, and I love getting asked questions to make it more understandable, because if I'm not careful, I get too esoteric. Great questions. Yes, ma'am.
What if you want to be the seller of a house, then as opposed to the buyer, then how do you set up your trust?
Well, if I'm going to be the seller of a house that I'm selling subject to, which means I own a property, I've been running it as a rental, there's an institutional mortgage still on it that I'm making payments, I'm going to sell it just like I showed on the screen. I'm going to sell it on a wrap all-inclusive land installment contract. The deed stays in my name, the loan stays in my name, they make a payment to me, the payment I collect in August I use to make the September payment to my bank. The payment they make to me in September, I use to make the October payment to my bank, because I'm always going to be 1 month ahead, because I never know what these people are going to do to me. That's how I do it. And I have now escaped all of the joys of being a landlord. And I have now bequeathed onto my tenant, onto my buyer, under my vendee buyer, they now have all the benefits and burdens of home ownership in the eyes of the IRS. They get the interest deduction for what they pay to me. I still get an interest deduction for what I pay to the bank because I wrapped it. Okay? All right, we're in a hot spot over here. Then I'm going to look over the other side of the room. Okay.
So if you bought a property subject to that was recently in a bankruptcy that was discharged, and then the person who you bought the house from refinanced, cash you out, but that lien didn't come up on the title, and they just gave you one check and didn't pay off the other lender, what do you do in that situation?
So I'm going to recap that. You bought a house subject to debt that may have been discharged in a bankruptcy, but the lien didn't show up on a title exam. I'd go get another title exam from a different title examiner before I did anything else. I'd really want to know if that lien's still there.
Okay, for clarity, the person I sold it on land, and then that person went and got refinanced, but it didn't come up with the title.
When they got, so you sold it on land contract, they got a refinance to pay off your land contract, and you got all your money.
Right, and I still have a lien for the person I bought the house from. That lien still exists, but it was discharged in the bankruptcy. It didn't show up on the title.
Discharging a lien in bankruptcy doesn't remove it as an encumbrance on the title. So I don't know what's going on, and I'm not sure if a title examiner missed something or what. I don't know. So what I would say is find a different title company and go do a second exam on that one. And I would hold some money in reserve. Don't go spending all that money you just got cashed out on. Hold some money in reserve on that one. Okay? If 2-3 years goes by, breathe, enjoy, move on. Okay? Cool. Good questions. Who do I pick on over here?
Can I have two?
Well, let's see if anybody else has got one first. Then we'll come back, okay? That's fair. We got someone in front and behind you. Hold on.
Where do you go to find potential subject to buy?
Great question. Where do I find deals or leads? Well, there's 3 ways of doing it. One is outbound marketing. Letters, text messages, phone calls, postcards, whatever. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is really sophisticated inbound marketing, where you do all sorts of stuff on the internet and you have people call you to try and sell their houses. That's expensive, that's painful. The third way is the cheapest and best way. Hi, my name is MAREI. I'm a real estate investor. Do you know anybody that has a house they can't afford? If you do, would you have them give me a call? Here's my number. Hey, my name is Jeff. I'm a real estate investor. You got anybody that's got a house they're struggling to make payments on? Be happy to talk to them. I think I can help them. Here's my card. Word of mouth. I'm gonna, my friends are so mad at me because I don't do any marketing for deals whatsoever. I don't send out postcards. I don't do phone calls. I don't do direct mail. I don't do dialing. I don't do texting. I don't do any of it. All my deals come because of word of mouth. Let's go call Watson because he can solve the problem. Tony?
Did you ever do a contract for deed in this process?
Yes. Okay. Contract for deed is the same thing as land installment contract. Okay. Yeah, 2 different words for the same thing. Yep. Let me come back because I know you've got a soft voice.
Is anything that you mentioned the same as an executory contract, or is that something separate that you do like to use?
Your question was, is anything that I do in like an executory contract? And I'm not sure where you're pulling that from. My brain almost has me down in the parishes of Louisiana, wondering if that's what they call land contracts down there.
It could be the same thing. That's what I meant.
Yeah. I believe you just pulled French law out on me and tested to see if I knew what I was talking about. I'm only involved in one case down in Louisiana right now, so my knowledge there is pretty slim. Yeah, you're straight out of Louisiana with that one. That's okay. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, an executory contract is like a slow motion land installment contract. So it doesn't fully execute or complete until somebody else performs. Just like a land contract. I've got a contract with Sebastian, and he has to deed me the house when I've made all the payments to him. Okay? Same principle. Yes, coming. Who's keeping track of the number of questions I've answered?
3, what was that, 2?
2 or 3 or 4. We're like at 10.
When you were talking about being upfront and disclosing everything on the front end, what if I don't know my intent? What if I decide to sell it and the seller was thinking, hey, for the next 6 months to a year, I'm going to get my credit repaired through this, and all of a sudden I sell it. Do I have an obligation to let them know what my intent to do with the property is? No.
So your obligation is twofold: to tell them that you're an investor and you're going to make sure their payments are made until the loan's paid off. And that may take the next 27 years, or you may fix the house up and somebody may make you an offer and you may sell it in 7 years or 7 months. You don't know. But what I can tell you is for as long as I'm in the deal, the payments will be made on time. We had a couple more hands up. This side of the room is asking more questions than this side of the room. You guys feeling that? By the way, where's my Chick-fil-A?
Well, I didn't know you were going to be this informative. Sorry.
You got time for one more, and then we've got to vacate.
Okay, one more.
Next door's open, so everyone can
Okay,
go over there.
one good one. I'm going to go to you, ma'am.
When you're talking about the trust, is there a difference from what you're talking about? Is that a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust?
I'm talking about grantor revocable trusts, not irrevocable. So the person who creates the trust can change it, amend it, alter it at any time that they want while they're alive and breathing. Okay? Great question.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna hand the mic over. We're getting kicked out.
Thank you so much. We move next door. They've got a spot for us next door, right? Right. The bar's open next door. No food, but the bar is open next door. Okay. All right.
Brian took over. Yay! Brian's hijacking my meeting. I love it. We'll let Brian hijack the meeting any day. I hijacked the meeting.